Hello. Hi everyone. How are we? Good. Fantastic. My name is Monica Prince, and I am the coach for our fabulous senior readers this semester, every semester. And I'm so delighted to have you all here. You're going to hear from the fabulous stylings of Lily Schneider, Dancik, Ellie Taliani, Lunen Ryba, our fabulous Lunen, and Bobbi Newsome. I'm so excited to have them here. I'm stoked that you're all here. We have a couple of things to go through really quickly. One, this is an interactive reading, okay? So it requires your excitement and thrill and participation. So if you like something, SLAM students, what we do, we like it. Other options include jingling your keys, moaning under your breath. You're like, that was real good. All those things are completely acceptable. We clap for everyone, that's easy. And if something like really moves you, feel free to cry. It's a safe space. If it's funny, please laugh, because some of these are very funny. And if it makes you feel something, congratulate our writers at the end. I have a couple of thank yous. The first one being thank you so much to Campus Safety for letting us in here. And also a huge thanks to the gallery for having us here and the fabulous interns for the gallery who take care of it. Huge thanks to our literary arts interns who set up all of our fabulous chairs and got your wonderful bookmarks for you, so make sure you grab some at the end if you haven't grabbed anything yet. And huge thank you to Tony Zita, who runs those fabulous interns, and the Writers Institute, and all the other wonderful things at Susquehanna. We're very, very grateful. Tonight we have two co-hosts, that is Dr. Sean Meyerman and Dr. Carla Kelsey, and they'll be introducing our individual readers. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's go.
Hi, I'm Carla Kelsey. First, Professor Prince, thank you so much for the work you do with the students. It's been a wonderful series of senior readings this semester as always, and it wouldn't be possible without you. Lily Schneider. Lily Schneider's hometown is York, Pennsylvania, and she will be graduating with a creative writing and publishing and editing double major. Lily tells us that she is most proud of how much her writing grew while studying abroad and eventually having a piece published that she wrote and workshopped in Australia. Congratulations, Emma. It's amazing.
That's a great
Advice she offers younger creative writers is to embrace your truths, experiences, and roots as a writer. Don't let anyone tell you any different. If you are like Lily, this will provide you with the foundation not only to write and share your work, to give feedback to others, but also to cherish the feedback that you receive. Professor Prince tells me that, quote, Lily excelled in my performance poetry class last year as Lily of the Valley, Schneider, in our page match. She impressed us all with her strong lineation and quiet moments in her stanzas. One of her poems, Cherry Pie, had half of us in tears when she workshopped it and earned her a stunning score at the final Poetry Slam last May. Professor Prince says, I'm especially grateful to Lily for introducing me to Patrick Roche, a poet who expanded Lily's idea of how narrative poems can be told backwards, a truly excellent writer. To my mind, this embodies Lily's spirit, someone who connects others and gives her whole heart and soul to the page. Come on up, Lily.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, your kind words, Dr. Prince. So tonight I will be reading an excerpt from a short story that I wrote, followed by two poems. So the first prose piece I will be reading, titled Give a Little Bit, is after the Supertramp song that's woven throughout the story, which follows the main character, Joe, who is a recent grad stuck in a demanding job and is growing increasingly distant from his girlfriend, Chloe. What he looks forward to most is coming home to the one thing that helps him escape, but that escape and Joe's attachment to it go on to create a tension that he cannot avoid anymore. Joe's favorite part of his day was coming home from work. Sure, that was everyone's favorite part of the day, but especially so for Joe. He worked the typical 9-to-5 shift as a legal assistant at Gibson & Alvarez, tucked away in the heart of downtown Saratoga, New York. The job was technically secure, a place for him to gain legal experience. Everyone said so. His parents had pulled string with distant family friends, and his father's position as head chef at Skidmore College had afforded Joe a more cushiony life than most, since his education there was fully covered. Sure, Joe appreciated it, but the current pay he was making was just above minimal, and his boss, Don, the head lawyer at the firm, had a way of talking like he was doing Joe a favor by giving him a job post-grad at all. The experience everyone kept pushing was secretly a burden, he was convinced, one that made Joe's mind wander far from the office. It made him want to go home even more. At his apartment, Joe could feel her waiting for him. He'd step into the apartment, shrug off his coat, and take a deep breath, the familiar scent of home wrapping around him. She was always there, sitting in her corner, in the chair in the corner of the room, so much a part of his world that he couldn't imagine his life without her. Her name was Annie. Annie wasn't like other girls Joe had been with. She had a way about her, quiet, alluring, confident in her own way. She never demanded attention, but she always drew it effortlessly. Joe had come to depend on her in a way that seemed natural, even inevitable. There was no rush in the way she moved, but when she did, it was as though the entire room molded to her presence. She had chestnut-tinted skin that was smoother than silk. Joe loved to trace his finger along the outlines of her dark curves, whispering how beautiful she was. He strummed against her stomach, pulling his ear close so he could mimic how her belly hummed as she laughed. She was especially curvy at the bottom of her arched hips, thinning as she rose to the top of her long neck. Her voice could whisper as a sweet, tender tone one minute, then roar with a raw, rebellious passion the next. She always knew when Joe needed her. Earlier in the year, during their first months together, Joe sometimes swore Annie leaned toward the sunlight on the mornings as he left her for work, as though she was already waiting for the shift and return of the day together to begin. He became aware of it in the same slightest way he felt when someone quietly turned a face toward him and locked eyes with him in a crowded room, like he was actually seen. Yes, he worked his 40 hours to provide mainly for the rent, but when he got home, Annie was the one who really understood him. She never asked many questions. She didn't nag. She just was. Joe's perfect companion, soft, comforting. Her warmth and sunny radiance filled the room the moment he left himself in. There were times when he tried to shake off the feeling, especially when Chloe, his girlfriend, who he met in college and now rented the apartment with, would give him one of those sideways looks. She never outright complained, but Joe could feel the growing distance between them. She didn't get it, not really. Annie was different. She didn't ask for anything but his time, and she always gave back more than she took. Things hadn't always been strained between Joe and Chloe. In college, before Annie entered the picture, they spent long evenings sprawled on Joe's twin XL, trading dreams about a life they didn't think would end up trapping them. Chloe used to tease him about how serious he looked reading his case briefs, how she could see the real Joe only when he'd sing or dance along poorly to whatever was on the radio. They used to laugh easily, share late-night, overly malted diner milkshakes, and pretend adulthood would be nothing but weekends at home from college. But after graduation, and especially after Joe brought Annie home, something in the rhythm faltered. Joe had never been one for talking about his feelings, but with Annie, words weren't always necessary. Sometimes she'd sit with him in silence, and that was just enough. Other times, she would make her presence known, drawing him in almost like a whisper, a thrum of something familiar. It wasn't obvious at first, but Joe knew the moment she moved the slightest, something inside him shifted. I'll give a little bit of my life for you. So give a little bit of your time to me. See the man with the lonely eyes, oh take his hand, you'll be surprised. Thank you. Next, I'll be reading a poem titled Cherry Pie. Start with the crust, flour-dusted hands, chilled butter in careful cubes, a little salt, a little water, just enough to bind. No recipe needed, just not too much, never too much, or it falls apart before it even begins. I learned that young, watched you work the dough, palms pressing, folding, shaping, until it became something smooth, something to conform. I tried once, eager, uncertain, but you took over, said I was too rough, said I'd make it tough to knead, not realizing that's maybe what I need. The filling is next, cherries, dark and gleaming, their skins tight with memory, some reminiscent and ripe of laughter, some shriveled and puckered with grief, some so bitter I'll know they'll make the tongue recoil. You pit them with practiced hands, fingers moving quick and sure, pulling out the hard centers, pulling away from the origins. Still, something lingers, a sharpness beneath the sweetness, a taste that won't dissolve no matter how much sugar I pour. 2 cups, 3 cups, 4 cups, piled high, heaped on, spoonful after spoonful, a desperate alchemy to make taste easier to swallow. Some words leave an aftertaste that granules cannot mask, but some things are resistant to sweetness. The spices come next, cinnamon, its warmth of fleeting tenderness, nutmeg, its sharpness of lessons learned too young, clove, a lingering bitterness of things left unsaid. I stir them in, watch them spiral for the ruby dark filling, watch them settle where they will. Some flavors meld, others fight back. Into the oven it goes, heat rising through the lattice layers, slow but relentless, like the years between us, like the silence that grew thick when I no longer fit the crusted shape you had in mind. The filling bubbles spills over, seeps into the cracks of the crust, burns at the edges where we never quite met in the middle. I watch it through the ceramic pan, wondering if time, if distance, if this slow, steady heat can transform what was raw into something whole, something renewed. And when it's done, golden, imperfect, its flaws bake deep into its form, I cut a slice, place it before you. You take a bite, chew slowly, eyes unreadable. A pause, a nod. Maybe this time it's sweet enough. Thank you. And the final piece I'll be reading tonight is another poem titled Lilies. My parents named me after a flower dressed in white, a bloom that can speak in silence at both the point of cradle and casket, a perennial whisper that can signify both beginnings and ends. I've been laid at the altar and at the grave. I've been carefully folded into bouquets for births, just like my own, when my mother found out she was expecting on April 13th. And for farewells, anthers dusting time with memory, petals unfolding like prayers. They say I mean purity, but forget that purity can also be power. I am not delicate. I endure, sprouting from bulbs buried deep, beneath loam and layered frost, under the quiet tyranny of the season I was born. Every winter tries to keep me quiet, particularly on December 24th, 6:45 a.m., the date of my first blossom, but I rise undaunted each spring, splitting soil with instinct. June welcomes me with open arms, and I bloom like I was never buried. Sepals peeled back like truth, stamens bold in golden defiance. Yes, used for funerals, my grandmother's ashes surrounded by the white blossoms, but still, don't mistake mourning for weakness. I can stand proud in the room when no one else can speak. I hold grief and grace in the same breath as naturally as sap runs in spring. My name is a paradox, soft syllables, hard roots, rhizomes clenched around stone. They call me gentle, but I know the strength it takes to open, to photosynthesize pain into something radiant. So let them think I was named for something fragile. Let them forget how that flower survived flood and drought, how it blooms pristine in the messiest soil, mud-slicked, wind-bruised, still luminous. I wear my name like a white flame. I carry sorrow and rebirth soiled deep in my chest. Lilies, the flower of both morning and morning, and I am not afraid to be both. Thank you.
Our next reader, Ellie Taliani, hails from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Carla Kelsey says that Ellie is one of those writers and thinkers who can apply her talents to multiple disciplines, but that her work is not just impressive for its range, it is the unique ways in which Ellie incorporates her investigations into her writing that truly shines. In her time with us at Susquehanna, majoring in both publishing and editing and creative writing, as well as minoring in honors, Ellie is most proud of the work she did in bringing Gilded Lily Press to life in her small press class. She is also extremely proud of the novel draft she wrote for her honors project. Ellie's advice to creative writers is to remember that being a good writer means being a good reader. Refining your literary taste often outpaces honing your own craft. Now let's please welcome Ellie Taliani.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'll be reading 3 pieces today, 2 poetry, 1 prose, starting with a poem called Tell Me. Tell me, what if I loved you as penance, to piss you off, to juice my heart in my own chest, let passion dribble down my ribcage, stain the fractures in my bones, erode my foundations. Tell me, what if I called you by your name as our little joke, to piss you off, to remind you that you're still human under there. Tell me, what if I looked you in the eye as retribution, to piss you off, to stop seeing your corpse rent with so many weeping mouths I cannot distinguish between wounds I left and what the world has wrought. Tell me, what if I was gentle with you as a challenge, to piss you off, to blunt my claws on your shark skin. Tell me, what if I stayed as an experiment, to piss you off, to break down our walls. Tell me what to do with our pieces. Thank you. is an excerpt from a short story titled The Autumn Night. This is toward the beginning of the story. The main character, Evelyn Fletcher, has been tasked with proving herself by killing a monstrous boar. Hope you enjoy. Evelyn had not really grasped the creature's size when it was far away. It stood easily twice her height and bulged in every direction with glowing veined musculature. Wounds gaped in its sides, but that hardly seemed to slow it down when the vines retracted into the pit walls and it lurched toward her. Evelyn cried out as the sheer force of the blow launched her into the wall. One of her daggers jolted from her grip. She pushed off the wall just in time to see it charging toward her again. It was not remotely fair for something that large to also be so quick on its feet. The fungal boar's tusk carved deep gouges into the wall right above where Evelyn crouched. She sucked in an accidental breath of its spores, sickly sweet, as it puffed its rage and sighed brutally downward. Evelyn rolled. There was a moment's disorientation as she tried to stand, one shoulder still under its massive bulk, and she thrust upward with her iron dagger. The blade dug deep just above the boar's leg. The beast squealed. Evelyn had a moment to celebrate before her dagger was ripped from her grasp by a sudden jerk. The boar turned to face her, snorting. It pawed the ground. Evelyn braced a foot as high as she could manage on the vine-choked wall. The boar charged. Tusk came within a hair's breadth of her face as Evelyn jumped, twisting the magic ring on her pinky finger. In a blink, she was on top of the beast. Fungi crumbled under her boots. The surface was slick with silvery blood, and it only grew more difficult to gain purchase when she plunged another dagger into the boar's spine. Evelyn dug her fingers in and drove the blade deeper. Despite her best efforts, Evelyn was quickly thrown off the creature's back. She hit the ground in something approximating a controlled roll, not quite making it to her feet, but managing a crouch. The boar's charge was lopsided now. Evelyn sprang to the side as it hit the wall, leaving a shallow slash in its side with her iron dagger. It squealed and released a puff of acid green spores. Evelyn coughed, her vision blurring slightly. The thunder of hooves alerted her to another charge, and she twisted her ring, reappearing out of the strike zone and landing at a slash with her dagger. She teleported underneath its belly while it was disoriented and stabbed upward, and had to quickly use the ring again to get out from under its attempt to crush her. The ring began to grow hot on her finger. The boar skidded for a moment on its own blood as it turned to face her. Its hide was torn, its legs shook, but there was nothing but rage in those glowing green eyes. Evelyn met its next charge with a ring-assisted leap and opened a new gash in its back before landing in a tight roll. She was on her feet in time to slash its back left leg before it lurched away. Evelyn went to pull the same maneuver again as it rounded on her, but her foot slipped on the wall. The boar's tusk punched right through her leather armor and into her gut, pinning her to the wall. Smoke rose from the tip of its tusk as it glanced off of the iron charm sewn into her breastplate. It squealed and slammed its head into her again and again, only her desperate grip on its head keeping it from pulling away from her enough to open a dozen new wounds. Evelyn screamed, digging her dagger into its skull for purchase. The blade slipped. She slid downward, and the boar's next strike went right through her shoulder. Evelyn finally felt the knife snag in its eye socket. The boar let out its loudest scream yet and pulled away, stomping around the arena. Evelyn crumpled to the ground. She found a vine close to hand and began dragging herself upright. Her hands were slick with the beast's silver blood mixing in with her own pool of scarlet at her feet. She had put out its eye. That had to be worth what it had done to her torso. It was all she could do to keep her screams to a whimper. When the boar finally spotted her and charged again, all she could do was fall. Evelyn held her blade upright, pushing with all her remaining force. The boar's second attempt at a downward slash to reach her drove the knife deeper than she ever could have. She couldn't drag herself out of the way fast enough to avoid its bulk. Evelyn clawed at the ground, but there was no way she could get her legs out from under the fallen beast. Her pinky ring burned her hand but offered no further magic. The dirt under her nails was increasingly muddied with her blood. Belatedly, Evelyn remembered her audience and craned her neck upward. Trapped as she was, all she managed to see was a bark-covered foot before darkness stole her vision. Don't worry though, she'll be fine. Thank you. The last piece I have for you tonight is a poem called The Dragon. Since I know you'll never ask me, you promised not to ask me to take a sander to my edges and clip my spines down to rounded bumps. Let me wrap you in blankets instead. A carapace might suit someone else, armor might be in my second skin, but you are guarded by your own softness. cushioned in a defiant belief that despite it all, you will mend, will trust, will love. And despite it all, you've made me believe, despite my better judgment perhaps, I believe, if not in the far future, at least in the present, in this moment, these people, and what holds us together. Thank you.
Next up is Kira Dancik from Germantown, Maryland. Kira is majoring in creative writing and publishing and editing, and she is minoring in professional and civic writing. Kira is most proud of her novel in progress, titled Dragon Chaser, and intends to publish it once her edits are complete. When asked what advice she has to offer, Kira states, "You're going to receive a lot of advice, but ultimately it is up to you to decide which pieces are helpful. It's your story, so only you can decide how to tell it." This focus on the individuality of the writer seems to serve Kira well. As Catherine Dent says, Kira's imagination dances on the page, and that her characters stick with you for their charm and humor, as well as for the way Kira invites us to empathize with unique situations. Join me in welcoming Kira Dancik to the podium.
So sweet, thank you. All right, I have two prose pieces tonight. The first I will be reading is an excerpt from a short story titled Lotus Blooming, which follows Vren Wessex, a volunteer at the local veterinary clinic for dragons. When Vren reached the ward, they peered in through the window in the door so they could get a sense of what they were about to walk into. It was worse than they thought. Greg stood on a teetering chair, doing his best to reach a very disgruntled-looking 2-foot-long iridescent wyvern, which was crouched atop the cabinets. The dragon's tail swished back and forth in a rapid, jerking manner, yet Greg continued to reach for it. Vren watched as the sleek, slippery dragon leapt off the cabinets, landed on Greg's head, and slid down his back while Greg plummeted hard onto the counter. Meanwhile, the bubble dragon skidded under the examination table. Vren took that as their cue to enter. They opened the door only just enough so that they could get in and then quickly shut it behind them. "Good afternoon, Dr. Mills," they said. Greg startled. "Miss Wessex!" Oh. He grunted and wrapped his arm around his middle. Greg was in his late 20s, around 15 years younger than Vren, and relatively new to being a dragon medic. He had a vast amount of technical knowledge, but he hadn't yet developed the gentle touch needed when it came to interacting with aggravated and injured dragons. "Dr. Stone said you might want some help with your latest patient," Vren said. Greg gave them a pained smile. "Help would be appreciated, yes. My patient is a bubble dragon named Sudsy. Her wing needs to be splinted, but she won't sit still long enough for me to actually do that." "Did you try using a bubble wand?" Vren asked. "What?" "Aside from looking like and exhaling bubbles, this type of dragon also really likes to play with bubbles." "Yeah, but I need her to sit still, not jump around trying to pop bubbles," Greg said. Vren shook their head. "Just be ready with the splint. I'll get her up on the table." Greg raised an eyebrow, but did as he was told. Meanwhile, Vren got a large bubble wand out from one of the lower cabinets. They walked over to the table and crouched down to where Sudsy was hiding. "Hello, little one," Vren said in a soft voice. Sudsy growled in response. "It's okay, I'm here to play." Vren pulled the wand from the tube. Sudsy's pupils went wide, immediately transfixed by the iridescent solution swirling in the oval. Moving slowly so as not to accidentally create a bubble, Vren started backing up. Sudsy followed the wand's movements. She was limping on her right wing. Vren guided the wand over to and up the ramp onto the table, then held it right at the edge. Sudsy sat on the table, completely enamored with the wand. "Wow," Greg said as he moved in with the splint. Sudsy didn't move an inch while he sat and splinted her wing. When Greg was done, he gave Vren a thumbs up and they sheathed the bubble wand. The little dragon blinked and shook herself out. Then she looked down at her wing, moved it, and gave an elated chirp when she realized that it didn't hurt anymore. "Yes, that's right. Greg just wanted to help, that's all," Vren said as they stroked the grateful dragon's smooth head. "Incredible," Greg said. "Now I know why everyone around here says you're a dragon whisperer." "Thank you, but I just know a few tricks is all. Not from what I've heard. The other medics have told me that you have an incredible wealth of knowledge about dragons and are able to help bonded pairs with problems even experienced dragon handlers struggle with. I just didn't believe them before now because I didn't think someone without a dragon would know so much about them." Vren flinched. Sudsy cooed as they pulled their hand away. Greg's face fell. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. It's fine," Vren said. The second piece I have for you is the opening. Thank you. The second piece I have for you is the opening to my current novel in progress, titled Codename Energize. Field trips. A great opportunity for students to get away from the desks that haven't been half of them since the 4th grade and get out into the quote-unquote real world for a day. Also, unfortunately, a seemingly prime target for supervillain attacks. A fact that Cody's best friend Gray was more than willing to bring up on the bus ride to Weston Warehouses. I'm just saying that if our school, for some reason, feels the need to risk our lives, they could at least take us somewhere interesting, she said from her slumped position in the seat beside Cody. Well, hey, look on the bright side. If we do get attacked for some reason, you could take the opportunity to gather some data on superpowers, Cody suggested weakly. Gray looked at him with a thoroughly unamused expression on her face. Cody, I want to study superpowers, not get killed by a human flamethrower. Cody sighed. Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to be positive. Besides, let's be honest here. What supervillain wants to attack the students of suburban Pine Hill High? We're not that interesting. Gray sat straight up in the seat. Are you kidding me? You just jinxed us. That's not a thing? Oh, it 100% is. That time in the 3rd grade when you said there was no way you'd break a bone climbing that tree. That was forever ago. Or the time in middle school when you assured me there was no chance you dropped 6 cartons of eggs at once, breaking every single one inside. In hindsight, that wasn't my best idea. Or last summer, when you got caught in that massive storm after betting it wouldn't even drizzle. Okay, admittedly, I'm starting to see a pattern, Cody relented. Gray sighed deeply as she slumped back down. We'll just have to hope Orbital can find the time to come save us. What does that mean? Gray clenched her eyelids shut and sucked in a breath through her nose. This is why you should read the local news. Crime rates have been rising lately, and as our city's only superhero, Orbital hasn't been able to keep up. You know, the more I talk, the more I'm starting to think I really should treat this as an opportunity to study the powers of whoever attacks us, because it might be the last chance I get before I die. Although, at the rate we're going, we're probably going to get attacked by the only supervillain in the city without powers. Cody rolled his eyes. Oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. There's no way we get attacked by Orbital's arch nemesis. Veracious is way too high profile. The look on Gray's face perfectly spelled out, you've got to be kidding me. Just then, the bus hit a bump in the road, jostling everyone. A loud snort from the seat behind theirs told Cody his other best friend, Bax, had just woken up from his nap. Sure enough, Bax's head poked up over the seat. His hair was messy and the bench had left impressions on half his face. What's going on? Bax said. Cody's jinxing us to oblivion and back, Gray said. Bax opened his eyes fully and looked at Cody. Seriously? Again? I am not jinxing us, Cody exclaimed. Oh, hey, look, Gray said with a suddenly very chipper tone. We've arrived at our tomb. The bus turned into the rather large parking lot of Weston Warehouses. Facing the parking lot were 5 large warehouse buildings with several more stretching off into the distance in rows. To the right of the parking lot was a smaller building, presumably an office. The company straddled the suburban-urban boundary, so not much further down the road, Ivory City's skyline was visible. The bus pulled to a stop in one of the parking spaces usually reserved for trucks. The general rustle of everyone gathering their things and preparing to stand was immediately quelled by Mr. Boldslav, who stood up at the front of the bus and loudly cleared his throat. A slightly out-of-shape individual, Mr. Boldslav was about average height, but because of the way he slouched, he looked short. What was left of his hair was entirely gray, and his voice reflected his tired face. All right, everyone, listen up. Before we head in, I have a few things to clarify. First, I know that a warehouse isn't anyone's idea of a fun field trip. However, the owner of this branch reached out to the school and offered to pay us if we came. It gets better. Although, if I'm being honest, even in light of that, none of the faculty wanted to claim the trip. I most certainly do not, but the school picked our class at random, so I guess we're just lucky. In spite of that, since we are here as invited guests and representing the school, I want everyone on their best behavior. Try to look engaged, even if you zone out. A few students chuckled. Second, I know there are rumors floating around that we might be attacked by a supervillain. Cody swore Mr. Boltsoff looked over at them when he said that. Had Grin mentioned something to him? However, Mr. Boltsoff continued, I can assure you that a last will and testament will not be necessary. Yeah, Gray definitely said something. Thank you.
Lunen Ryba is from Parkville, Maryland, and will graduate with majors in creative writing and publishing and editing, and with a minor in French. Lunen is also a graduating member of the honors program. Celestial Bodies, the chapbook that Lunen wrote for my intermediate poetry class, brilliantly synthesized lyric and dramatic modes while achieving narrative development and structural innovation. The collection explored faith, gender, and embodiment, addressing archetypal questions while breathing with individual experience and life. The physical chapbook with its embroidery and signatures was itself a work of art. We are in for a treat. Lunen tells us that a moment of pride is the experience of working as a member of Gilded Lily Press, the small press class of 2023. Lunen is also proud of a poem titled To the Ones Who Saw the TV Glow and says, I quote, the advice I have for younger creative writers is to not limit yourself. Explore styles, forms, themes, and ideas that you've never written before. You just might find that you enjoy some of them more than you expect. Lunen's writing is brilliant, unique, so smart, and luminous.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Dr. Kelsey. Tonight I'm going to be reading one work of fiction and one poem for you. The first piece I'll be reading is an excerpt from a short story titled Disappearing Act, which I wrote in my advanced fiction class. To give a little bit of context for the scene, the main character, Leah, has recently met a traveling magician named Russell who appeared in her hometown. She's made a deal with Russell that for each of his magic shows that she attends, he will teach her a magic trick. The scene is Russell's first magic show in town. The town was humming with excitement for once. Russell was setting up on the little platform at the center of town that was usually reserved for dull speeches and traveling musicians. He had about him, besides an array of cloth-covered objects, an air of mystery that the folk of this unchanging town couldn't help but be drawn to. Children clamored at the foot of the stage. Leah squeezed her way to the middle of the crowd, where Russell could easily spot her. He adjusted an object, then another, and then when he seemed satisfied with his arrangement, he came to stand at the center of the stage with his gaze downcast. Silence spread over the crowd like a thick fog. Ears pricked for a whisper of sound, eyes strained to avoid blinking for even a second longer. The whole town held its breath. Good people, said a voice that danced from ear to ear. Leah shivered as it passed. Welcome to the show that will change your lives. The stage erupted in a riot of color. Vivid streamers burst in a halo around Russell's feet with a loud pop that set the children shrieking with excitement. Around the stage, the cloths lifted from the objects as if pulled by invisible strings, revealing a phonograph playing a lively tune, a rectangular box with ominous round holes in all sides, an engraved silver teapot with 4 matching cups, and a set of lanterns whose flames burned foxfire blue. Let's begin with some refreshments. Russell reached into one of the lanterns, barehanded, and drew back with its flame flickering over his fingers. He gave an underhand toss, and the foxfire leapt into the crowd, to hover over 4 heads. Leah felt the gentle pressure of it on the crown of her head, cold as snow. Come forward, if you please. Leah stepped up to the stage, behind an elderly woman, her husband, and a little girl in a frilly pink dress. They each received a silver teacup. Now, Russell said, holding the teapot like a waiter, what would you like to drink? Darjeeling, please, said the old woman. Russell laid a hand atop the lid and poured, an unmistakable muscatel scent rising with steam. Darjeeling. Brandy, groused the old man. The golden brown liquid that flowed from the pot could be nothing else, and his eyebrows flicked upward in surprise. Hot chocolate, the little girl giggled. She could hardly contain her glee as the sweet drink filled her cup. Russell stepped in front of Leah. And for you, miss? Apple cider. Blue flames glinted off his sharp-toothed grin. The taste of fall. And it was, crisp and biting. Thank you for partaking, my friends. If you'll return to the crowd, wait! Russell caught the little girl by the shoulder and crouched down to her eye level. Little lady,
Do you wash behind your ears? Yes. Then what's this? He reached behind her ear and pulled back with a single copper coin. The girl gasped in delight. He pressed it into her hand, covered it with his own, and leaned close conspiratorially. Now, let me guess. Your favorite candy is butterscotch. She nodded shyly. Here you are, then. When he removed his hand, a cellophane wrapper crinkled in her open palm. The girl threw her arms around Russell's neck. Thank you, Mr. Magician. His wild laugh echoed through the crowd. Who else wants candy? The show went on in a mad rush of flame and spangle. Russell conjured coins and candy from the children's ears, hair, and noses. He chased an unruly ball of foxfire around the stage, gulped it down when he caught it, and blew it, dragon-like, into the sky. The phonograph switched his voice with the record, so that music came out every time he opened his mouth. As the sky began to go warm with the sunset, Russell brought a boy on stage and wheeled the tall box to the center. For my last trick of the night, I'll be taking on the vampire's coffin. From the box, he withdrew a set of sharp wooden stakes. Each of these stakes is long enough to impale the coffin through to the other side. Take them for me, young man. Thank you. I'm going to step inside the box and close the door, and my assistant here is going to insert the stakes. Then, on the count of 3, the box will open, and you'll all see my fate. Ready? Russell climbed into the box and pulled the door closed. The boy picked out one of the stakes, considered it for a moment, and plunged it forcefully through one of the holes. Gasps rang through the crowd. Leah chewed her thumbnail to the quick. She didn't want to watch her new friend be run through, but she couldn't bear to look away. When the final stake was forced in, the boy stepped back and crossed his arms. 1, he shouted. 2, 3. The box flew open. A cloud of bats poured out over the crowd and spilled up into the sky. Thank you all, whooped that disembodied voice. Thank you, and good night. Cheers and applause filled the air. Leah craned her head back, watching as the last of the bats started away. A hand landed on her shoulder. How was it? Russell asked. Leah shook her head in disbelief, but she was grinning, so he had to know she was amazed. Come on. He took her hand. I promised to teach you a trick. Red flashed in the corner of her eye. Leah looked around, expecting to catch coattails vanishing into the crowd, or a 3-eyed mask watching her among the people, but there was nothing. A trick of the light, maybe. Leah? She shook her head. It's nothing. Lead the way. With the autumn harvest complete, the apple orchards to the north were unoccupied, save for birds and squirrels. They were the only witnesses, besides Leah, to Russell's explanation of the teapot trick. He produced it out of nowhere. Leah was certain he hadn't carried it from the stage to the orchard, and handed it to her to inspect. Its intricate engravings disguised the seam that split it perfectly in half. Leah wedged a nail between the 2 hemispheres, and it popped open to reveal a hidden 4-chambered lower compartment. Twisting the lid rotated which chamber faced the spout. But how did you know what everyone would ask for? Leah examined the empty chambers. Russell's eyes narrowed impishly. Magic. Shadows stretched tall across the grass as the afternoon waned. Leah shivered with the strange excitement of it all. Thank you. For my second piece, I'll be reading a poem titled Circumstellar, which begins with an epigraph from The Little Prince. You become responsible, forever, for what you have tamed. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm here, swimming among the stars you love so much, flirting with the moon in your stead, twirling circles around the world with her, a blue marble staining brown. How bad is the air down there? Up here, there is no air at all, nothing to pollute with belching gas and our burning ancestors. Have you met yours yet? I remember you, still yearning for a homeland you felt so disconnected from, even with your feet on its soil. Where home is now, where it wants to be, where stardust stiffens bones and turns teeth into bared constellations, smallest speck of light in the universe, a blink, like a lighthouse in winter, bleak and knowing and beckoning to shore. Ghosts haunt the curves of the solar system. Laika plays fetch with comets and white-hot meteors. She's wagging her tail. I cannot bring her home, since you're allergic to dogs, and ghosts make your skin crawl. Don't worry, she's not lonely. The black holes always wave hello, and the planets pet her fur as she runs past. Canis Minor is her best playmate. Europa weeps with her ocean heart. I am crying too, in a celestial sort of way, curling tongue around planet 9 instead of your name. A single % of life waves a loaded money gun. Between you and me, they are not welcome, where the worst of human cruelty and the best of human efforts mingle together with Orion and Cassiopeia, building a home out of space junk and dreams. Thank you.
So our last reader of the night. Bobbi Newsome's hometown is Viola, Delaware, and she's graduating with majors in creative writing and publishing and editing, as well as minors in professional and civic writing and philosophy. She tells us that she's most proud of the first time she got on stage by herself at the second African American Poetry Series, and of the first poem she wrote here at Susquehanna because she says it gave her courage to try again. Advice for younger writers includes, and I quote, abandoning everything except yourself, the ink and whimsy. My advice for younger writers is to read Bobbi Newsome. Get to know Bobbi Newsome, learn from Bobbi Newsome how to be an exceptional writer, editor, and member of the writing community. It has been my sincere delight and pleasure to see Bobbi develop as a writer. She's innovative, curious, multifaceted, and exciting. I've also had the extreme good fortune to have Bobbi teach alongside me in the Summer Writers Workshop and as a teaching assistant in my Introduction to Poetry course this semester. Everything Bobbi does, she does with excellence, grace, good humor, and honesty. That's a unique combination. She's a stunning writer who makes poems that sing on all the levels, from form, imagery, content, language, and most definitely sound. Bobbi is an authentic star.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Dr. Kelsey. Okay, tonight I'll be reading 3 poems. They are all from the collection that I've been working on for my advanced poetry class this semester. The first one I have is a piece called Hydrophobia. Black child is invited by white child to go fishing. Everything of value left on shore. Shoes, phone, keys, money. Black child is left with the clothes on his back. White child grabs his wrist, like iron, like a man, like no resisting, like stuck between the sea and head to feet. Black child heads to lake's edge, look past his feet, eye to eye with anything looking up. Sharks, gators, his own reflection, bait, chum cut to pieces, dripping out of bloody buckets, empty throats. Black child is not given life jackets. Black child is not asked if he can swim. Water cold as bone, yanks his toes, falters his steps, trips him onto deck, smacks the hull, is all he knows when he closes his eyes, the boat, the body beside him, an endless wet and arm away. The motor yells itself hoarse, blades and burning and louder than anything screaming back below the surface. Black child dips his hands in the water, scales turning below. Sun reflects pictures off the waves, cracks of white and good slippered teeth, and staunch faces stuck in screams, and whites of eyes before seeing God, and bones gnawed to the marrow, and froth and spittle, and dying baby's breath, and skin stretched clear over bones, and white robes, and bones under boats, and bones under water, and bones under siege, and bones, and if black child falls under cracks of white across the water, who grabs him? Black child grabs pole and holds it high as noon, picks fish hook, metal at his hands unbendable, hung from a knot and swinging in the breeze. The motor shushes out and white child smiles at black child. Bait gets hooked. The sound of black child's cast into the water and laughter. Sustainability. Most people in farmlands USA don't want to see the livestock. The animals are claustrophobic behind metal bars, stank-clogged air make people stop breathing to talk, short breaths while farmer goes on about how to pick them for slaughter. That buck, Negro, and Negress are all terms for these animals on the block. How each pair of parents is selected for star bloodlines, bred based on how much money the babies will bring in. You'll want experienced females with lots of other babies and wide hips, males with a strong back and broad shoulders, more muscle, more meat, more money for farmer. Teeth are an indication of the body's health. Check gums and bone structure. Don't let the frail ones know anyone biblically. Every generation, some try to fight for better conditions, get their necks. We've got to call the deviants, the disabled, the criminal, the diseased. They'll start a revolt teaching that behavior to the rest. The common practice is to castrate the male in front of his friends and family. It'll reduce his testosterone and prevent ideas from spreading. We need them stupid and docile. Get them used to seeing loved ones take a bolt to the brain and bleed out. Kill anyone that says it's not normal. Livestock don't have the degree of sentience to be traumatized by trafficking. And if they still want to escape, they're crazy. Don't they know we got teams of dogs and slave catchers ready to drag them back by the ankle? We have to teach the animals the cage is security, not slavery. We feed them, watch them scrap for scraps to scrape up enough milk for their own babies, and the other one because the white mother just didn't want to feed it. If one of the animals got the attention of farmers' sons, they would belong to the kid when the farmer kicked the bucket. The family would have no livelihood without their tons of livestock. Farmer tells the press it's all humane to keep the public from prying. Everyone just claps their hands and prays over the meal. It's delectable. Farmer picks one of the good ones. Eat your fill. This last piece I wrote in honor of my literal day one friend and the other melanated students on campus who I know can't go to a function without being followed by a camera and surprised to see themselves somewhere on the school's social media. So with everything else that Susquehanna has handled this semester, I hope that they're listening. I must always leave the house camera ready. Curls perfectly bouncy and bobby pins, clean-cut kitchen, baby hairstyled, forehead flat, face scrubbed to a shine with open palms, teeth brushed white and wafting a refreshing hint of spearmint. Precious metals at my wrists and neck, jewels coming out the ears, clothes pressed and fitted, not a wrinkle on my person. Knees and elbows buttered up, greased to reflection for any surprise flash photography. Lips fully contoured because I am here to blow minds with each breath and break the bounds of what I was told a black girl is supposed to be. To articulate myself through art and orate mellifluously. Lips contoured because I am only considered able to blow kisses. Smile, pose, hold perfectly still. The reputation of the whole race rests with my sole participation of the favorite game at any party. Find the fly in the buttermilk, ask it something inappropriate, be the first to take its picture. Stick me on the front page and buy me for a quarter.